Good afternoon, dear Kenyans. Over the past 2 years, our government has rallied the country behind the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, the basis upon which we were elected in the democratic elections of the year 2022. We have achieved significant progress in increasing food production by reducing the cost of farm inputs, thereby lowering the cost of food and lowering the cost of living. We have stabilized the economy by preventing what was an imminent debt default. We have stabilized fuel prices, lowered inflation to an all-record low of 4.6%, and we have stabilized the foreign exchange regime. We have implemented radical changes in the education sector, including resolving the CBC question. We have rolled out a new student-focused higher education funding model that has special emphasis on making sure that children from vulnerable families have the requisite support in their education. We have also improved the student-teacher ratio in both our primary and secondary schools by hiring an additional 56,000 teachers and also hiring an additional 2,000 tutors for our TVET institutions. We have equally resolved bottlenecks in cash transfer program to vulnerable Kenyans, including orphans, people living with disability, and the elderly. We have not only brought on board more beneficiaries, but in keeping with the promise that we made, it is now not the case, as it was in the past, that these vulnerable Kenyans have to wait for months. Now their stipends are paid as salaries of public servants are being paid. We did roll out the Hustler Fund that today benefits 2 million Kenyans. And we have 7 million Kenyans who had been denied access to financial services by credit reference bureaus. They are now off the blacklisting roll. Our affordable housing program has now more than 100,000 housing units under construction. The first cohort I will be launching in a couple of months to new homeowners. And we have 160,000 young people across Kenya that are employed under this program. To expand manufacturing, value addition, and agro-processing as a key contributor to job creation, 18 county aggregation and industrial parks and 6 new special economic zones are under construction across Kenya. And at the same time, we have 200 fresh produce markets that are at various stages of construction to support our farmers with access to markets for their produce, in keeping with the commitment we made to our mama mbogas. To accelerate manufacturing, last year we imposed levies on importation of clinker that can be manufactured in Kenya. We made a saving of Kenya shillings 20 billion in foreign exchange as imports of clinker dropped to almost zero. We also imposed levies on imported steel billets. And today, we have 11 steel factories that 6 years ago were closed. They have started operation, hiring 16,000 Kenyans, and last year alone, we saved 120 billion shillings in foreign exchange as a result of this intervention. Our digital transformation agenda is also on course with 17,000 government services online, while we have 274 digital hubs across Kenya with 152,000 students and digital workers in our TVETs and also in digital hubs in different parts, up and running and giving young people an income. Our universal health coverage plan has already onboarded 107 community health promoters, and the process of registration for our social health insurance fund is ongoing, on its way to launch on the new date of 1st of October 2024 that will make it possible for every Kenyan to have a health insurance, and for those suffering from critical illnesses to have access to the critical illness fund, making it possible for every Kenyan to have access to treatment without the burden of having to fund it. On the measures I announced last week, barring state and public officers from engaging in harambes, I want to inform the country that the Public Fundraising Appeals Bill is now ready for publication tomorrow. However, even with the progress we have made, I am acutely aware that the people of Kenya have very high expectations of me. And they believe that this administration can undertake the most extensive transformation in our nation's history. Recent events that necessitated the withdrawal of the finance bill, which will require a review and reorganization of our budget and fiscal management, have brought us to an inflection point. Upon reflection, listening keenly to what the people of Kenya have said, and after a holistic appraisal of the performance of my cabinet and its achievements and challenges, I have today, in line with the powers given to me by Article 1521 and 1525B of the Constitution and Sections 12 of the Office of the Attorney General's Act, decided to dismiss with immediate effect all the Cabinet Secretaries and Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya, of the Cabinet of Kenya, except the Prime Cabinet Secretary and Cabinet Secretary for Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Affairs. And of course, the Office of the Deputy President is not affected in any way. I will immediately engage in extensive consultations across different sectors and political formations and other Kenyans, both in public and private, with the aim of setting up a broad-based government that will assist me in accelerating and expediting the necessary, urgent, and irreversible implementation of the program that we have including other radical measures and programs to deal with the burden of debt, to explore raising domestic resources and revenues, expanding job opportunities, eliminating wastage and unnecessary duplication of a multiplicity of government agencies, and slaying the dragon of corruption, consequently making the government of Kenya lean, inexpensive, effective, and efficient. During this process, the operations of government will continue uninterrupted, guidance of principal secretaries and other relevant officials. I will be announcing additional measures and steps in due course. Thank you very much, and God bless our great country, Kenya. Asanteni sana.
Indeed, breaking news coming in from State House, Nairobi, from none other than the head of state and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defence Forces, that is President Dr. William Ruto, announcing that he has dismissed his entire cabinet, apart from the Prime Cabinet Secretary and Cabinet Secretary for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, the Honorable Musalia Mudavadi. Breaking news coming in just now at this hour, that is the dismissal of the entire cabinet of the Republic of Kenya by President William Ruto after weeks of massive protests, especially that began with the Anti-Finance Bill 2024 and later generated into the anti-government protest. That breaking news coming in just now, and I just want to give you a recap of the cabinet of the Republic that has just been dismissed. Among the cabinet secretaries, of course, the only one who has been spared is Musalia Mudavadi, who is the Prime Cabinet Secretary and the Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs. Kithure Kindiki has been the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration. Professor Njuguna Ndung'u has been the National Treasury and Planning Cabinet Secretary. Aisha Jumwa has been the CS, Gender, Culture, the Arts and Heritage. Aiden Duale has been the CS for Defense. Alice Wahome, CS, Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development. Dr. Alfred Mutua has been CS for Tourism and Wildlife. Moses Kuria has been CS for Public Service, Performance and Delivery Management. Rebecca Miano has been CS for Investments, Trade and Industry. Onesmus Kipchumba Murkomen has been CS for Roads and Transport. Soipan Tuya Roslenda has been the CS for Environment and Forestry. Zakaria Mwangi Njeru, CS Water, Sanitation and Irrigation. Penina Malonza, CS East African Community, the ASALs and Regional Development. Mithika Linturi, Agriculture and Livestock Development. Ezekiel Machogu, CS Education. Davis Chirchir, CS Energy and Petroleum, Ababu Namwamba, CS Youth Affairs and Sports, Simon Chelugui, CS Cooperatives and Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, that is MSME Development, Salim Mvuria, CS Mining, Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs, Florence Bore, CS Labor and Social Protection, Eliud Owalo, CS Information Communications and the Digital Economy, Susan Nahumincha Wafula, CS Held, and the Secretary to the Cabinet, of course, has been Mercy Kiru Wanjao, and Attorney General has been Justin Bidan Njoka Muturi. That has been the breaking news coming in at this hour. We thank you for watching TV47, the home of untold stories. We'll get you the recap of that announcement by President William Ruto that has just been made this afternoon at State House, Nairobi. Remember, Kenyans had been waiting with bated breath the announcement ever since that press invite was made by State House. Earlier on, where we were expecting to see what President William Ruto was expected to say. And then I want now to bring in my colleague, that is Apollo Kamau. He is a legend on matters politics, to just be able to dissect this for you. We thank you for choosing us. I am George Maringa on the socials at George Maringa _, as well as on X for TV47 is at TV47 News. I want to bring in Apollo Kamau to just be able to have this dissection of what we've just seen. Good afternoon, Apollo. Good to see you. Welcome on set.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much.
Indeed. And of course, we've seen what has happened,
Yes.
today, and a lot had been, anticipated in terms of, that announcement. Dissolve his entire cabinet, and that is what is exactly he has done. From your perspective, first of all, what do you make of this?
I think this first, it's good news for Kenyans, especially the Gen Zs,
Yes.
who hit the streets, pushing for changes, starting with the cabinet, starting with the issue of wastage,
Yes.
managing wastage in this administration.
Yes.
And it shows President William Ruto, contrary to what critics have been saying, he has listened to the people. And that's why he has effected this change. And this is a holistic reshuffle. In fact, it's not even a reshuffle. It's a dissolution of the entire cabinet, given we only have the Prime Cabinet Secretary who is serving, and principal secretaries will be serving as caretakers. So this is good, and I think from here on, what we will be looking at is how Kenyans, and especially the Gen Zs who have been pushing for this change, how they will react. But I'm sure Kenyans will be happy. This is positive news for him. It's going to ease pressure for him as he settles down now to manage the next phase, which is very crucial. And this, of course, started this week on Tuesday, when he did say he's going to form a broad-based administration. And we saw him with the former Prime Minister at KICC. And I think what we are looking at, it could be, although many people are ruling it out, a unity government, which is including not just his allies or those who are supporting his administration, but also the opposition. And this is something, if you heard him say, he's looking for a lean, inexpensive, and effective administration. So when we talk to some sources in his administration, they were saying this number of the cabinet as it stands is definitely going to go down. So what we are looking at is a lean cabinet, and he did say that, and a government of national unity, which he also did stress in his statement. So this is good news for Kenyans, and also for the president is going to ease the pressure and allow him to focus on his agenda. Remember, there's still the pending agenda, and one of the issues which was pending and which people were pushing for, and especially the protesters, was the issue of IEBC.
Yeah.
So IEBC is done. There are 8 other pending bills.
Yes.
And those bills have the issue of the opposition in mind, bringing the opposition into government.
Yeah.
So this is a huge step. And first, this is as a result of the pressure coming from the Gen Z protests. And he is telling them, look, I have heard your cry.
Yeah.
I have heard your grievances. And this is what I'm doing. I have implemented what you did.
Yeah.
So it's now for them, those who have been pushing for this lean, the reduction of wastage in government, issues to do with fighting corruption. It's now for Kenyans to wait how this moves forward and give the president space. In short, today he was also telling Kenyans, I have done what you asked.
Yeah.
Now give me space to operate, and we push the country forward.
Absolutely. Apollo Kamau, of course, our political reporter, senior political reporter here at TV47. And, you've kept, you've been very abreast and had the pulse of even, looking at what you've seen in the past. You were also, in the protest, you monitored them, and even the previous protests. And one of the issues that we see even from the Azimio la Umoja protests that were coming in from last year and, this year's protest, one of the significant issues has been the quote-unquote incompetency of the cabinet that he has had. And it did seem that, President Ruto has, of course, over time defended them. When the protests began by the Gen Z, they wanted him to dissolve the entire cabinet, not reshuffle. Do you think that this has, come at the right time, or could he have even done it way earlier?
He could have done it earlier, but this is the right time.
Yeah.
And when you look at his cabinet, there were questions raised about some of the cabinet secretaries facing integrity questions.
Yes.
Like we had Public Service Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria on the edible oil scandal when he served in the trade docket.
Yes.
Then we have Mithika Linturi in the agriculture docket, the fake fertilizer scandal. Then we have other CSs who have been involved in issues to do with altercation in public, which has not appeased Kenyans. And the largesse display of opulence, for example, Roads Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen has been in the news for displaying that. So there has been pressure, but the president has also been in a tight spot.
Yeah.
Looking back in the August 2022 general election, these are his allies. These are people who propped up his presidency to State House. So there was a political debt to pay, and therefore he owed them a political debt. And therefore, it was a delicate balance for him to fire his allies and to appease Kenyans. There was this pressure, even critics were saying, if he continues like this, there might be a snap election. And that's why there was a lot of pressure for IEBC to be reconstituted. There were questions on whether he can sustain or whether he can handle this pressure to 2027. This is the third year he is in power. And therefore, this was a delicate balance. And for him to dissolve the cabinet, he's telling the people, I have heard you, and I'm ready to make this work. And therefore, give me space to work.
Absolutely.
That's what he's telling the people. He's telling Kenyans.
Yeah.
Yes.
And even prior to this announcement, even for the entire day, we've seen that very, very famous video of President Kibaki, who did the same back, during his tenure as president. When you look at, such political, moves in terms of even streamlining government, and now seeing that PSS will be running the government operations, they will not halt. Do you think it will continue to inspire public confidence, in terms of, because now the government is facing a different type of opposition this time round? It is an opposition from the young people, from the Kenyans themselves, and even we've seen the opposition leader appearing in tandem with the president, and the Kenyans have told him, no, we do not want you there. When you look at such trajectories, such precedences that are being set, do you think that we are at a time where we will be able to see a change in mindset, a change in inspiring, public confidence? Just briefly.
I think it will.
Yeah.
Because this is what Kenyans have been asking for. And there was the issue of trust with the Kenya Kwanza administration. And now that the president has had the people, and he has implemented that, and this is part of the austerity measures across board. And he has started right from the top. It's going to cascade all the way down. Remember, yesterday we had a circular from the head of the public service, Felix Koskei, reducing the number of advisors for cabinet secretaries. So Kenyans will gain trust. What is left now is to see the results of this, what will happen. And there will be a lot of politics because this cabinet will reflect a lot. It's a broad-based inclusive government, as he has said. So most people are watching out. Will we see allies of Azimio leader Raila Odinga and other opposition leaders coming in? And moving forward, will it be a lean cabinet in terms of the number? Will it be like, let's say, 7 ministries will be dropped? We have like, let's say, 15 or so. So these are issues people will look into. But I think from here, because he has had this agitation for change, people have the trust in the administration, they have trust in his leadership, and now it's about moving forward. Will there be change?
Will there be change?
Yes.
The 2010 Constitution of Kenya allows a maximum of 22 cabinet, or rather 22 ministries under Article 152, and set the minimum number to 14. We've seen both presidents, we've only had 2 under this current constitution. They've all gone to the extreme, the maximum, which is 22. Even looking at gender parity, do you think that perhaps these will be some of the conversations that will shape up? There's been that conversation on who else will be coming in. Apollo, we'll come back to that conversation. But then I want us to link up with our very own Ruga Evil, who has pitched camp at State House, Nairobi, for that presser, and she's been following that press conference, that presidential address to the nation. Ruga, good afternoon. Paint us a picture of how the mood and the environment is like at State House. Ruga Eval, I beg your pardon, has been following the press conference at State House Nairobi. Good afternoon, Ruga Eval. How is the mood like at State House Nairobi?
Ringa, getting me one-on-one from State House, getting you one from State House Nairobi. All right. Maringa, you're receiving me one-on-one from State House Nairobi, where President William Ruto has just dissolved his cabinet, the 22 cabinet secretaries, apart from the Prime Cabinet Secretary and also Foreign Affairs Musalia Mudavadi, and also his deputy is among those whose President William Ruto has said ya kwamba hawatakuwa wakienda nyumbani kwa sasa. Mtazamaji, ukinipata moja kwa moja kutoka ikulu ya Rais William Ruto, kumekuwa na vuta ni kuvute kati yake na kizazi cha Gen Z, maandamano ambayo yamekuwa yakiendelea hapa nchini, mtazamaji, kama njia mojawapo ya kuchukua zile austerity measures ambazo Rais William Ruto alikuwa ameahidi hapo awali. Basi amesema ya kwamba atakuwa akikarabati upya wizara ya mawaziri hapa nchini Kenya. Aidha, mtazamaji, Rais William Ruto amekuwa akiguzia baadhi ya yale matakwa ambayo ameweza kuafikia au yale mafanikio ambayo amepata tangu alipochukua usukani wa uongozi mwaka 2022, akisema kwamba tangu alipoingia uongozini, mtazamaji, ameweza kuajiri zaidi ya walimu wapatao 56,000. Aidha, mtazamaji, amesema chini ya mpango wa ujenzi wa nyumba za bei nafuu, basi wameweza kuajiri zaidi ya vijana wapatao 1,160,000. Mtazamaji, ikiwa tu ni njia mojawapo ya kupunguza joto za kisiasa na pia yale matakwa ambayo yalikuwa yametekelezwa yamesemwa na Gen Z, basi Rais William Ruto amesema ya kwamba anachukua hatua hii kuhakikisha kwamba anaweza kulainisha uongozi wake.
Asante sana Ruga Evil, who is at State House Nairobi and has been following that press conference, press address presidential address to the nation by President Dr. William Ruto. He has just dissolved his entire cabinet, save for Prime CS Musalia Mudavadi, who is also CS for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs. And earlier on, even before the president dissolved that cabinet, he went ahead to enumerate to the nation the achievements of his government so far. He did speak about the employment of teachers, as well as, the cash transfer programs, as well as Hustler Fund, UHC, SHIF, the Harambe, scrapping off of CASs, as well as the other issues that he did speak about. I'm here with Apollo Kamau, but before we continue that analysis of that, Apollo Kamau is our senior political reporter here at TV47. We've got George Wanjovi on the line. He's a political analyst. Good afternoon, George. How are you doing? I want to pick your mind first of all from your analysis. What do you make of that presidential announcement made by President William Ruto?
Well, a very good evening to you all gathered in studio. Indeed. And all Kenyans and our viewers watching at large. Mm-hmm. This is a very delightful moment for us Kenyans, because what the president has done is that the president has stood with the law, especially observing the law in terms of making difficult decisions while observing the mood of the president, the mood of the presidency, and the mood of the country. Number one, I would like us to engage on one issue, that the JD of the president or the presidency is to appeal to the needs, wishes, and the appeals of the 54 million Kenyans. We have had a feeling that the cabinet was a damn squib because they were not delivering on any subject. There was a lot of grandstanding among cabinet members. And above all, they didn't deliver onto any subject they were not thoughtful, and they didn't deliver onto any subject worthy a mention. So it's a good move that has come too late, but still we have got a chance to redeem and revamp ourselves, revamp the cabinet, which is the highest making decision organ of the country, and above all, revamp our doings as a country and as a nation at large.
George, the Constitution of Kenya 2010 sets the maximum at 22 and the minimum at 14. Do you think that perhaps over the years, during the previous administration and the current administration, there has been an achievement of not only ensuring that the number is indeed at, within that threshold, but indeed the cabinet, delivers? Because we've seen, push and pull of the nominees, over time.
Thank you. The capping of the capping of the ministries was a very thoughtful idea that was drafted by the drafters of our constitution. Because number one, it did limit the presidential powers from having a minimum of 14 to 22 ministries. That means these people, in their own wisdom, they thought and they viewed that 14 was adequate and optimum, and beyond 22 would have been an extension of a high margin. So, having taken that to consideration, is that we can merge all our country's affairs as at today, till the time that we amend our constitution to 14. That's something that is very thoughtful, so that we can curb on wastage, so that we can curb on patronage, because we see a lot of patronage in nominees to the cabinet, so that we can curb on patronage. And above all, so that we can cut our cloth depending on the size of our clock. So, meaning that we'll have enough for what is enough for us. We'll channel our affairs, our responsibilities, our deeds, and even organize our country into a way that 14 is enough for us. So it's a very good move and a move that is in the right direction, provided that we get to usher in political goodwill from the presidency. We get to usher in Article 10 of the Constitution, that is the article on good governance, respecting Article 1, that is on the sovereignty of the people, that sovereign power belongs to the people, and above all, respecting Chapter 6 of the Constitution. So it's a good move in the right direction for a progressive country that doesn't have enough for wastage.
George, the president has spoken that, and he has earlier today, he has said that Kenyans have high expectations of this government, and he has heeded to that call, and he's, proceeded to dissolve the entire cabinet. Do you think that then he needs to have, what kind of cabinet then would he need to have, in the coming days, in the appointments that we will perhaps see? Because even this cabinet that has just been dissolved had, faced quite some resistance, especially from the opposition members of parliament, who said, some even said, let them hand, President Ruto the cabinet as it is. What kind of cabinet then should President William Ruto seek to have, in his administration moving forward?
Thank you very much. In my expectation or my ideal setup of the cabinet,
yes,
it's a cabinet that inspires hope. A cabinet that is experienced. Because if you look at the previous regimes, the Kibaki regime, that is the 2007 to 2013 regime, and even 2012 to 2022 regime run by President Uhuru Kenyatta, it was a cabinet that really inspired hope on many aspects. A cabinet that had proven itself capable. But the current cabinet that we had, it was a cabinet that didn't inspire hope, but the hopes that was guaranteed was a damn skip. I hope that in the next selection of the cabinet, we'll have technocrats. That's number one. Number two, people who understand the will and the will of the masses. Number three, visionaries. Number four, people who respect the feeling on the ground, because the feeling on the ground right now, this is the time that Article 1 is coming up with a lot of roar. Because before, Article 1 was a whimper, but now it's coming up with a lot of roar, that sovereign power belongs to the people. So a cabinet that will respect the will of the people and will see deliverables on the ground, because right now we don't have the deliverables on the ground. Look at every cabinet. We are scampering with everything. The cabinet minister for health, our 8th grade students have become demonstrators. There is no service delivery. There is no service delivery when it comes to the university education and the JSS. It's quite disordering. When you look at, let's say, the cabinet minister for roads, the other day he said that there is no money to develop the roads. When you look at the minister for public service, a man that I used to adore, there have been so many fights between him and the deputy president. We hope that the next cabinet will not be a cabinet of chest dumping, grandstanding, but a cabinet that will come to actualize and operationalize Article 1, read together with Article 10. Sovereign power belongs to the people. Number two, respecting the principles of good governance, because number one, in this aspect, the Gen Zs and majority of the citizens in this country don't care who is the president. They don't care who is the minister. They just want the deliverables. Yeah. And they just want to see things moving for the country. So in that aspect, we hope that the cabinet will be visionary, the cabinet will be in touch with the ground and with the citizens, and above all, they'll not just stamp, but spend more time explaining on their deliverables, not being socialites.
Absolutely. George, as we even look at this developing story, when you talk about a cabinet that inspires hope, and for a country that has seen the youth come up and say, we want to be part of this table, we want to be in the decision making, we want to be involved, shall we say perhaps for the very first time, a cabinet secretary who is in the youth age perhaps, and even trying to balance the art of gender as well, regional balance as well. What kind of inspiring hope would you be envisioning?
Well, in my view, hope can come from any side. Expertise can come from any corner, because you're seeing the youth do inspiring things or inspiring things. Yes. When it comes to innovations, when it comes to copyrights, the youth have excelled onto that. But in my view, Regional balance must be a must because we must have a cabinet that represents the face of Kenya. That is a face that the whole country will have a face because the country is owned by all of us. Not all of us can sit, but at least there'll be that regional balance. But on to the other one, there is something that we should not sacrifice. The special abilities and exceptional gifts that will be, that these people will carry to the table. And above all, the political goodwill that will be given by the president, because the president must usher in a new state of political goodwill. So the president must usher in political goodwill for things to run, and he must give the freedom to his cabinet ministers. They must not have an albatross on their heads, but they should have freedom to express to express their free thinking to the cabinet, so that at least you can have a cabinet that, number one, attracts a country that, number one, attracts private equity, number two, promotes robust exploitation of resources, number three, each and everyone will have a peace, because you see, like the Gen Zs are saying, they have got nothing to live for and they have got nothing to die for. So a country, each and everyone will be guaranteed of its peace. And number four, a country that will promote robust value addition, less corruption, because in Kenya we have been ravaged by corruption. You remember, pent-up pain by corruption has been brought up this time. This was not about the finance bill. We witnessed the agro-leasing, the Golden Bag scandal, the IBC scandals, the chicken gate, the many scandals the Eurobond scandals. We have read the audit reports. We've seen the large lifestyle bill lived by a political class. And with that, the youth cannot allow a wing of oppressors or a ravenous elite that is eating too much steal their future. That is a major problem. And in my hopes, the next cabinet will be thoughtful and will take care of all these considerations.
Absolutely. George Wanjovi, political analyst, perhaps your closing remarks, even as you look to see what the future holds like, perhaps if you could even pass a message to the president as well as the young people.
On to my closing remarks, I think the president has scratched the surface. He should do much a bit more. I know he's struggling with legitimacy. It's not normal and it's not usual, even witnessing even in a Catholic mass, people saying that the president must go. I think he has scratched the surface. It's time to dig much more onto the root problem. And the root problem, what is it? The bedeviling corruption, the runaway corruption, an economy of the few, and majority that don't have a stake in this economy. Majority don't have a stake. I hope that in the forthcoming future, we create an economy that each and every person will have a stake. Each and every person will feel worthy to be a Kenyan. And for that, we must stop this narrative of exporting labor. Anyone who has worked abroad knows how working abroad is painful. But we hope that we'll have an economy whereby each and everyone feels worthy, and each and everyone has got a chance, and each and everyone has got an opportunity. Whether from the TVETs, because there is a lot that you can do from the TVETs, by making, let's say, we are moving to the electrical world, to the carbon credits, to the environment-free hazard, an environment that is free of hazards. We are moving to an environment to an area whereby we'll have a lot of innovations, a lot of copyrights to our universities, even to our postgraduate students and people with postgraduate degrees. And anyone with a special talent will have a place in this country. So let us have one country for all. In fact, that will be my closing remark. Let us have one country for all, and each and every member will have a stake in this country.
Indeed. George Wanjovi, a political analyst, thank you so much for speaking to us this afternoon, sir.
Thank you very much, TV47. I'm very glad to have you on the line, and I wish you each and everyone a good evening.
Thank you, and you too as well. That has been George Wanjovi speaking to us by way of phone, a political analyst, regarding the events that came in this afternoon. The announcement by President William Ruto that he has dissolved his entire cabinet, save for the Prime CS and CS for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs. You're watching TV 47. I'm George Maringa. With me in studio is Apollo Kamau, a senior political affairs reporter right here on TV 47. Apollo, you've listened and heard what George Wanjovi has had to say. A cabinet that he looks forward to, a cabinet that will inspire people. But at the center of it all, Apollo, we have to take cognizance of the political, moving of the tectonic plates of the political mountain in Kenya. And we've seen what, has been happening in the last few days, especially, the signing of the IEBC, bill into law, and we saw the former Prime Minister over there. And, what would be some of the, thoughts and expectations, especially from the political class? Because fine, Gen Z want a certain type of cabinet, but at the end of it all, the president is also a leader of a political party. What would be the balance or, the jostling of these positions? Because now they are out in the open, there will be quite, some lobbying, if you call it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think from today, there will be a lot of horse trading in terms of trying to consult, to bring people together and see from the various quarters who has the right experience, who has the right fit to inspire hope, as he said, among Kenyans. And I'm also curious to see whether, for those who have been sacked, there are some who can make a comeback, given we have had various ratings in the past, some of them commended for their performance. Not all of them are bad. So in this context, I'm looking forward to see whether any of them can make a comeback. But what I know moving forward, there is going to be a lot of horse trading based on experience, appeasing political quotas, appeasing Kenyans, and also people who I might say politically correct, given the political temperature at the moment. Yes.
Indeed, and perhaps, looking at, as you wind up, what would be, the expectations, especially from Kenyans, in terms of the way forward, even as, shall we see a young person on the cabinet for the very first time as well?
Given what the president has just done, this emanating from the protests, most likely there will be young people, but of course there are other factors to consider. Can you perform? You cannot just put someone there. And we know the reason why this cabinet has raised the heat. It's because of the various issues to do with performance, issues to do with corruption. So it's a delicate balance the president is in at the moment as he reaches out, as he tries to figure out what team can take him to 2027. Remember, this team will also give him the platform on whether Kenyans are going to elect him in 2027. Indeed. Or whether this will be a downfall. This is his major cabinet move. The last one was just a minor reshuffle, moving people around, alternating the CSs. But this one is a complete overhaul, and therefore the stakes are high, especially because we are heading to 2027.
Indeed. Yes. Thank you so much, Apollo Kamau, senior political reporter right here at TV 47, for your time, and also as we analyze the presidential announcement that came in this afternoon. You're watching News Now right here on TV 47, the home of untold stories. We thank you for joining us, and we begin at this hour with a recap of that presidential address made by President William Ruto at State House this afternoon.
Good afternoon, dear Kenyans. Over the past 2 years, our government has rallied the country behind the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, the basis upon which we were elected in the democratic elections of the year 2022. We have achieved significant progress in increasing food production by reducing the cost of farm inputs, thereby lowering the cost of food, and lowering the cost of living. We have stabilized the economy by preventing what was an imminent debt default. We have stabilized fuel prices, lowered inflation to an all-record low of 4.6%, and we have stabilized the foreign exchange regime. We have implemented radical changes in the education sector, including resolving the CBC question. We have rolled out a new student-focused higher education funding model that has special emphasis on making sure that children from vulnerable families have the requisite support in their education. We have also improved the student-teacher ratio in both our primary and secondary schools by hiring an additional 56,000 teachers and also hiring an additional 2,000 tutors for our TVET institutions. We have equally resolved bottlenecks in cash transfer program to vulnerable Kenyans, including orphans, people living with disability, and the elderly. We have not only brought on board more beneficiaries, but in keeping with the promise that we made, it is now not the case, as it was in the past, that these vulnerable Kenyans have to wait for months. Now their stipends are paid as salaries of public servants are being paid. We did roll out the Hustler Fund that today benefits 2 million Kenyans. And we have 7 million Kenyans who had been denied access to financial services by credit reference bureaus. They are now off the blacklisting roll. Our affordable housing program has now more than 100,000 housing units under construction. The first cohort I will be launching in a couple of months to new homeowners. And we have 160,000 young people across Kenya that are employed under this program. To expand manufacturing, value addition, and agro-processing as a key contributor to job creation, 18 county aggregation and industrial parks and 6 new special economic zones are under construction across Kenya. And at the same time, we have 200 fresh produce markets that are at various stages of construction to support our farmers with access to markets for their produce, in keeping with the commitment we made to our mama mbogas. To accelerate manufacturing, last year we imposed levies on importation of clinker that can be manufactured in Kenya. We made a saving of Kenya shillings 20 billion in foreign exchange as imports of clinker dropped to almost zero. We also imposed levies on imported steel billets. And today, we have 11 steel factories that 6 years ago were closed. They have started operation, hiring 16,000 Kenyans. And last year alone, we saved 120 billion shillings in foreign exchange as a result of this intervention. Our digital transformation agenda is also on course with 17,000 government services online, while we have 274 digital hubs across Kenya with 152,000 students and digital workers in our TVETs and also in digital hubs in different parts, up and running and giving young people an income. Our universal health coverage plan has already onboarded 107 community health promoters, and the process of registration for our social health insurance fund is ongoing, on its way to launch on the new date of 1st of October 2024 that will make it possible for every Kenyan to have a health insurance, and for those suffering from critical illnesses to have access to the critical illness fund, making it possible for every Kenyan to have access to treatment without the burden of having to fund it. On the measures I announced last week, barring state and public officers from engaging in harambes, I want to inform the country that the Public Fundraising Appeals Bill is now ready for publication tomorrow. However, even with the progress we have made, I am acutely aware that the people of Kenya have very high expectations of me. And they believe that this administration can undertake the most extensive transformation in our nation's history. Recent events that necessitated the withdrawal of the finance bill, which will require a review and reorganization of our budget and fiscal management, have brought us to an inflection point. Upon reflection, listening keenly to what the people of Kenya have said, and after a holistic appraisal of the performance of my cabinet and its achievements and challenges, I have today, in line with the powers given to me by Article 1521 and 1525B of the Constitution and Sections 12 of the Office of the Attorney General's Act, decided to dismiss with immediate effect all the Cabinet Secretaries and Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya, of the Cabinet of Kenya, except the Prime Cabinet Secretary and Cabinet Secretary for Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Affairs. And of course, the Office of the Deputy President is not affected in any way. I will immediately engage in extensive consultations across different sectors and political formations and other Kenyans, both in public and private, with the aim of setting up a broad-based government that will assist me in accelerating and expediting the necessary, urgent, and irreversible implementation of the program that we have, including other radical measures and programs to deal with the burden of debt, to explore raising domestic resources and revenues, expanding job opportunities, eliminating wastage and unnecessary duplication of a multiplicity of government agencies, and slaying the dragon of corruption, consequently making the government of Kenya lean, inexpensive, effective, and efficient. During this process, the operations of government will continue uninterrupted, guidance of principal secretaries and other relevant officials. I will be announcing additional measures and steps in due course. Thank you very much, and God bless our great country, Kenya. Asanteni sana.
That was President William Ruto earlier on at State House Nairobi when he made that address to the nation, announcing that he has dismissed his entire cabinet save for Prime CS, who is also Cabinet Secretary for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, Musalia Mudavadi, and of course the office of the Deputy President is still intact. That breaking news, that developing a story is what we continue to follow for you right here on TV47. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. I'm George Maringa. We will now be taking you around the country as we continue to monitor this developing story, even as we pick reactions from Kenyans as well as various people from this, or rather regarding this particular developing story. And to kick us off is Fabian Kibet, who is our reporter joining us from Elgeyo Marakwet County. Good evening, Fabian. Quite some news coming in at this hour. What is the feedback like coming in from your region, Elgeyo Marakwet?
Asante sana Maringa na kupata kwa njia ile shwari katika kaunti ya Elgeyo Marakwet. Leo niko hapa na wakazi kutoka kaunti ambao watoa maoni yao kuhusiana na ile swala ambayo hatua ambayo rais ameweza kuchukua kuhusu kufunjilia mbali serikali ama kufunjilia mbali maarufu kama cabinet yake. Pengine tu niko na wakazi katika kaunti ya Elgeyo Marakwet. Kianza tu kwa majina utueleze maoni yako, usia yako ni ipi kuhusiana na kufunjiliwa mbali kwa cabinet?
Kwa majina yangu ni Samson Mkito, mkaaji wa Elgeyo Marakwet County. Kwa hii mambo ya rais yenye leo ametoa, sisi kama Elgeyo Marakwet County tutakuwa tumepoteza, kwa sababu tulikuwa na mtoto wetu Senator Kipchumba Murkomen. Na sasa vile sahi rais amefunjilia mbali, sasa huyu Kipchumba Murkomen ataenda wapi kama sisi sasa wakaaji wa Elgeyo Marakwet? Kwa sababu si kama Elgeyo Marakwet tutakuwa tumepoteza mtoto wetu mahali penye ataenda. So naomba rais kama uangalie, kwa sababu saisi mtu ila achafanyie wewe campaign na sahi akuja apate kiti, hiyo sio poa kabisa. Kama ingekuwa mzuri uangalie hiyo maneno ya vijana hiyo GNC hiyo kidogo hiyo upatie mahali, lakini sasa mimi naomba kama mkaaji wa Elgeyo Marakwet, si tutakuwa tumepoteza, kwa sababu hakuna ile kiti ya Senate na hakuna ile ya CS yenye ulikuwa umetupatia. So sasa sisi kama Elgeyo Marakwet tutaelekea wapi? Na juzi kwa hii maneno ya maandamano, sisi Elgeyo Marakwet tuliunga wewe na tu kuenda maandamano na tulikupigia kura 100%.
Shukrani. Maringa, wacha tusikie pia kutoka kwa mkazi bila kutoka kwa Elgeyo Marakwet. Pengine hisia zako ni kuhusiana na kufunjiliwa mbali kwa cabinet.
Asante sana ndugu. Kwa majina naitwa Rogers Sarapenepas, mkaaji wa Elgeyo Marakwet County. Ya kwanza ningependa kusema kuwa sisi kama wakaaji wa Elgeyo Marakwet County tumepotesha pakubwa sana kwa mtoto wetu Kipchumba Murkomen ambaye ameachishwa leo kazi, lakini nataka niombe tu rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya, please rais utukumbuke, because at least Murkomen hapo just an alternate person. Murkomen alikuwa senator Elgeyo Marakwet County. So tunaomba rais wetu Ruto ya kwamba wakati ambaye ataona kuwa ataform this cabinet at least akosite hiyo. Asante sana.
Shukrani sana. Maringa, tu kwa nusu dakika wacha tupate kusikia kutoka kwa mkazi mwingine kutoka kaunti ya Elgeyo Marakwet. Pengine tu kwako ukiwa mkazi wa kaunti ya Elgeyo Marakwet, hisia zako ni vipi kuhusiana na kufunjiliwa mbali kwa cabinet?
Okay, for my case, my name is Harrison Barmaso, mkaaji wa Elgeyo Marakwet, bunge la mwananchi. Kwa maoni yangu ni kwamba what the president has done, we welcome it so much. We appreciate what he has done as going forward, because we want to have better Kenya. As he is going forward to reconstruct his cabinet, we requested that you delete all politicians selected technocrats, diplomats. For example, when we go back to when Matiang'i was the CS for education, ICT, he did well. So we requested the president not to consider any politician when he's going to reconstruct his cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Maringa, lastly, wacha tupate kusikia kutoka kwa speaker wa bunge la wananchi katika kaunti ya Elgeyo-Marakwet. Kwa nusu dakika tu ndugu yangu, hisia zako ni vipi?
Asante sana ndugu yangu, nashukuru. Ile mambo ambayo tumesikia leo breaking news ya kwamba rais amefutilia mbali baraza la mawaziri yake, ni kwamba jambo hilo ni nzuri, lakini pia lazima ajue ya kwamba kuna watu ambao walimsaidia yeye wakati wa siasa. Ya pili, sisi ni wakazi ya Elgeyo-Marakwet. Tuko na waziri Mudavadi kwa sababu matarajio ya watu wengi katika eneo hili ya Elgeyo-Marakwet.
Indeed, that is Fabian Kibet joining us from Elgeyo-Marakwet County regarding feedback and, of course, sentiments from residents of that county on the dissolution of the entire cabinet by President William Ruto. We will now want to link up with Willie Dennis Njiru, who is actually in a matatu in Naivasha. Good afternoon, Willie Dennis. Where are you heading to and what are the people saying?
Thank you very much, my colleague Maringa. Actually, I'm aboard a matatu that is destined to Nakuru from Kapsabet, and indeed, some of these locals, you see them here, are actually hailing from Baringo County, which is home to our president, and they allude to the fact that the president has indeed done what is something that is very remarkable. And without taking much of it, let me hear from you. What is your name and what do you have to say? Unaweza sema nini kufuatia kile ambacho rais amefanya?
I'm Lilian Getich from Baringo County. What the president has done is amazing. It's a great job. Yeah.
Did you see this coming?
No, it came by surprise. Yeah.
So now, for this, it has happened. What do you expect? What would you advise the president?
I'll advise him to use his own wisdom to choose the leaders. We expect that from every tribe in our country, we get the leaders from the CSS. Yeah.
So do we need to have politicians or we have to have elite, the learned, without the politicians inside?
We need to have the learned, people who have that profession.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sasa songa mbele kidogo camera person wangu. Dada, nieleze jina lako na utueleze what you take of this. The president has just dissolved cabinet.
Wow, I'm Cecilia Kipng'ok from Baringo County. Maoni yangu kwa yale president amefanya ni kushukuru, maana amefanya jambo njema kabisa. Tanami nimefurahia, na kenye mimi nasema tu, naambia president, wewe shikilia hapo na uombe neema kwa Mungu ili usidi kuongoza nchi hii kwa hekima kutoka Mwenyezi. Asante.
Uliona, did you see this coming?
No, nilisikia tu kwa mwenye tuko karibu naye ndio ameniambia ya kwamba president dissolve the government, and that was amazing. I was so happy for it.
So now what do you advise the president as a local? Because now the president is listening so hard to what the Kenyan people have to tell him.
Kenye mimi naambia tu president asidi kuongoza nchi hii kwa hekima. Wacha Mungu ape hekima. Wacha Mungu apatie yeye hata anapokaa awase kuhusu nchi vile ataongoza, na mapenzi ya Mungu ataenda kuongoza yeye.
Okay, ndugu, before turudi Nairobi, nieleze jina lako na did you see this coming? Karibia.
So, asante sana kwa majina yangu, na mimi naitwa Kotrick Kipsoi. Na nafikiri kwa sasa tulikuwa tunaona, nilikuwa nimefeel ingekuwa kesho, lakini imekuja haraka. Lakini nataka tu niambie president, kwa wakati kubwa sana watu wamesema wewe ni mwongo. Na sisi tulikupea kura 100% hapa Baringo. So tunasema tu sasa tunaona umeanza kutekeleza zile zilikuwa kwa roho yako na umeanza kuacha uongo. Na nataka tukuambie tu president, weka wale watu wanaielewa mambo ya uchumi, weka watu technocrats. Wachana na mambo ya siasa, changanya tu kidogo, weka wanasiasa kama wawili, wengine wakwe ni wale wamesomea hiyo maneno, kama ni tourism, kama ni mambo ya uchumi. Weka watu, wachana kuweka watu kwa sababu mtu alikutafutia kura ama nini. Weka ile watu watafufua uchumi. Ukiona vile Gen-Z wamefanya, watu wengi sana hawana kazi, na tunajua Kenya kuna pesa nyingi sana. Uchumi yetu iko juu kwa East Africa yote. Uchumi iko sawa sawa, lakini ni ile tu accountability iko chini. Ukiona mtu anasema kuna saa ya 900,000 anasema pesa kidogo, hiyo ni pesa nyingi sana.
Let me ask before I take it to Nairobi. Kwa sababu president amefanya hivi, ni wakati pia magavana waweze kufanya vile ambavyo rais amefanya?
So ndaka niambie tu majenzi ni wakati nzuri sasa ya kwenda kuwasalamia makavana. Tuambie tupike mzaza wale makavana, tuangalie ni akina nani wanaongoza, kwa sababu tukiona saizi ni kama ufisadi imekuwa default. Kwa mfano hapa Baringo tuko na shida kubwa sana. Ukiona keti ya 34 million inachengwa, utajiuliza hiyo ni keti aina gani ya 34 million? Wewe upewe 34 million saizi unachenga keti ama ni nyumba? So ni wakati kubwa sana ya kutembelea makavana na tupika hawa msasa kidogo.
Asante. Nashukuru sana kwa muda wako. Maringa, there you had it. Those are locals from Baringo County. I was actually on that side for an assignment, different assignment on the radio segment. But that well said, those are the locals where the president hails from. And they actually allowed the move by the president to dissolve the whole cabinet. And their clarion call is to the president to aid to this, that they have to bring in technocrats who are going to be performing, and they wish not to have instances that we have heard of graft across the country for what the exchequer is contributing every day. That is it from me here along the route. And we will be catching up later maybe for further reactions in regard to this. I take it back to you in our studios, Maringa.
TV47 is the home of untold stories, and we'll bring you the untold stories no matter where they are, including in a matatu, as witnessed by Willie Dennis Njiru, who is en route back to Naivasha. He was speaking to residents right there. We now want to bring you to County 047, Nairobi City County, and link up with our very own Paul Kirobi, who is around the CBD as well, to be able to just get feedback. Remember, this has been the hotspot, the center point where some of these demonstrations have been happening. Paul, good evening. How are you? What is the mood like in the CBD?
Naam, swadata kabisa na kupata kwa njia iliyo shwari kutoka hapa katikati ya jiji kuu la Nairobi, mita chache katika mita chache ndiposa waweze kufika katika ofisi za tume ya kukabili ufisadi EACC. Lakini kumbuka kwamba muda mfupi Rais William Ruto ameweza kuweka wazi kwamba tayari ameshavunja wizara, kumaanisha kwamba mawaziri wote 22 kwa sasa wameondolewa kazini. Lakini wasiwasi ambayo inaibuka miongoni mwa Wakenya ambao nimeweza kuzungumza nao ni iwapo rais atafanya mageuzi haya na kisha kuwarejesha watu ambao tayari ameshawafuta kazi ama kuwatoa katika wizara na kuwapeleka katika afisi zingine. Hili ni swala ambalo limeendelea kuleta vuta ni kuvute hasa miongoni mwa wananchi, na hawana uhakika iwapo Rais William Ruto kufanya uamuzi huu utaweza kusaidia serikali kuweza kuwajibika au kufanya kazi jinsi inavyohitajika. Labda kwa kifupi tu niweze kuzungumza na mmoja wa Wakenya hapa. Jambo kaka, labda uje utuambie majina yako kamili na sijui maoni yako ni gani kuhusiana na uamuzi huu ambao Rais William Ruto tayari amewapiga kalamu mawaziri 22 cabinet ministers, na iwapo hili litasaidia kusuluhisha matatizo ambayo taifa imekuwa ikikumbana nayo siku chache zilizopita. Tuambie majina yako na utueleze kauli yako ni ipi.
Kwa majina naitwa Emmanuel Kizia Baraza. Mimi maoni yangu naona kuvunja cabinet ni kitu mzuri, na tunataka akianza kuchagua cabinet wapya tuone mama mboga pale, mtu wa bodaboda vile alituahidi atafanya hivyo, na asitoe mtu aleta tena wale mfukuza apeleke mahali. Tunataka new face wa cabinet ndio Wakenya wafurahie hiyo muamuzi amefanya. Sasa hiyo ndio ombi langu kwa Wakenya, kwa rais tuweze kuwa na new face kwa kabineti yake, ndio tuweze kukuwa na imani na serikali yake.
Na swali lingine labda ambayo ningependa kukuuliza, ikumbuke kwamba rais amekuwa uongozini tangu mwaka 2022 na mpaka sasa hivi amehudumu kwa takriban miaka miwili sasa hivi. Je, unahisi miaka mingine mitatu ambayo imebaki, mawaziri ambao watachaguliwa wataweza kuwajibika kuliko wale ambao waliokuwepo?
Itategemea ni wagani ataleta kwa serikali yake, lakini sitoki kuona wale, tunataka kuona new face. Hata vijana wakuwe ndani, wale wanaweza kudumia Wakenya. Wakenya ni wengi, wale hawana kazi. Sasa tunataka wale watafanya kazi kwa Wakenya, Wakenya wakuwe na imani nao, na silete wale wazee, mtu ameritaya pale lingine analetwa tena kwa serikali. Mtu amefanya kazi ameritaya tena anapewa kazi. Tunataka kuona vijana pia tukipewa kazi, hata sisi hatuna kazi, tunataka kazi. Hiyo ndio maoni yangu.
Na labda niweze kuzungumza na kaka mwingine hapa, anieleze kauli yake ni ipi kuhusiana na uamuzi huu wa Rais William Ruto kuvunja cabinet. Na iwapo miaka mitatu ambayo imebaki, unahisi mawaziri ambao labda huenda wakachaguliwa wataleta mabadiliko katika serikali au la? Hebu tueleze.
Wataleta mabadiliko kwa sababu kutakuwa na uoga wa ile ya jenzia maandamano, kwa sababu ya corrupt. Ni kama wataokopa watafanya kazi, kwa sababu wale wenye walikuwa ni kama walikuwa na kiburi fulani, kwa sababu walikuwa wamechaguliwa kwa viti na walikuwa na urafiki fulani. Wenye wataletu nafikiri wasihusisha na maneno ya urafiki ndani, wachukue watu ambao wako serious na kazi, ambao watahudumia Wakenya, kila mtu aridhike. At least ataleta uaminifu fulani kwa Wakenya kwa sababu ya kufanya hivyo. Lakini la si hivyo, maneno huenda itaenda sakamunege tu kama atafanya hivyo, kwa sababu wembe ni ule tu. Vijana wameamua na wanataka waone mabadiliko Kenya. Asua hata ningeomba kuna waziri mmoja mwenye angepagishwa, angechagua new faces na changanye wasee ambao wako na idea na vijana ambao wataleta mabadiliko kwa serikali yake.
Asante sana kaka. Na mwacha nisikilize mwingine hapa. Ndugu, labda usogee karibu, utueleze majina yako mawili na rais kuamua kuvunja cabinet. Labda inaweza ikasuluhisha matatizo ambayo imekuwa kwa taifa hili au la?
Yes, itasuluhisha kwa hatua kubwa. Lakini hii shida yote ilianzia kwa rais mwenyewe wakati alisema hasla. Lakini wakati alianza kuchagua mawaziri, akachagua mwenyenye. Akachagua kila mtu, tukisikia pesa yake bilioni 5, bilioni 2 kuendelea. Sasa wale watu walikuwa ni bwenyenye. Kwa hii yenye inakuja, kwanza Amad Ministry kuwe 14. Akisema Amad Ministry, tunataka kuona wale ambao ni hustlers. Sio hustlers wa kutembea na ndege huko juu. Tunataka hustlers ambao yeye mwenyewe aliongea naye. Tunataka kazi. Hatutaki kwenda mjengo ile anasema ya housing levy. Tunataka kazi, maana Wakenya wamesoma. Tumesoma kama vijana. So kwa hii tunataka kuona face ya Kenya. Tunataka kuona face ya hustlers. Tunataka kuona kabila yote, all political parties. Lazima alete unity of all political parties, maana kitu imesumbua rais, kila mtu ameona biasness. Hii biasness, the only way to suluhisha, kabla hata tungeanza hiyo majadiliano ya next week, ni bring in public confidence to him. Tujue huyu mtu atafanya kazi. Kwa hii public confidence, tunataka kuona kabila yote. Na bado hatujamalizana na yeye kwa CS. Atowe hii, tunataka kuona parastatals. Tunataka kuona parastatal heads. Juu tunajua ni kabila gani, mpaka mtu anakuja anasema ati ni shareholders. Tunataka ingie kwa parastatals. Ile parastatal tuko nao Kenya imeoza. Iangushwe chini. Na mawaziri yangushwe chini. PS hivyo. Mpaka hii kiburi yenye watu walikuwa nayo. Kwanza huyu au masiasa kama Linturi, huyu Moses Kuria, Owalo, hii kiburi hawangefanya kazi. Kwa sisi tunasema ni asante kwa rais, sasa ameanza kuokoka. Ile wakati alikuwa anasema Bwana sifiwe kwa makanisa, hakuwa amejua chochote. Round hii sasa tunaanza kuona ameanza kuokoka vile. Akae karibu na baba hapa. Maana tangu akutana na baba ameanza kuokoka. Sasa aendelee kuokoka, na akisaokoka basi afuate nyayo ya wananchi. Asante sana.
Nisikilize maoni ya huyu kaka mwingine hapa. Ikumbuke kwamba mawaziri ambao wako kwa sasa wamehudumu kwa miaka miwili. Unahisi wale ambao labda wataletwa wataweza kufanya kazi kwa miaka mingine miwili ambayo imebaki?
Mimi kwanza mimi naitwa Henry Agutu. Henry Agutu haka majani. So mimi napongeza mtindo ya ambaye rais amefanya sahihi kufukuza hao watu, waweke hao watu nje kwanza, ndio akae chini aangalie nani na nani ndio atafanya kazi. Akichagua wale ambao wa Kenya wanataka, tutafurahia. Mtu kama Murkomen ameweka pale kubeba pesa na gunia kupeleka mali. Mtu kama Walo hakuna kitu anafanya pale. Mtu kama nani, what do you call it? Kilinturi. Mtu analeta mawe tupu, anasema hii ni nini? Anauzia hustlers. So tunataka ile wakati nini president alikuwa anasema anataka mama mboga, mtu ya bodaboda, mtu hustler. Si watu hustler si ambaye mtu anakimbia pale juu. Mimi mwenyewe naongea hapa, mimi ndio hustler. Nipeleke kwa hiyo ofisi. Kuna watu ambao wamesoma, ambaye wanastahili kupewa hizo kazi kama roads hii ya nani ministry ya roads hii ya Murkomen pesa ndiye anataka. Kuna wale wamesoma IT kama huyu ndugu yangu hapa amesoma hiyo kazi. Kuna wale wamesoma elimu anaweza fanya hiyo pwede Machage ni kupeleka pale kuongeza wana Mchagwe. Sijui na hivyo na Machogu. I don't know whether it's Machugwa or not. So hakuna kitu anafanya pale. Ni kufanya kazi ya wanaume kuongeza parents burden. Hiyo hatutaki. So ile kitu ya kwanza nataka kupongeza my minority leader Opiyo Wandayi. Akae na watu kujonja parliament pale. Yeye ndio mtu yetu papu. Yeye ndio maji ya Raila Odinga. Asidi kufanya kazi. Chidi kusukuma watu wafanye. Congratulations my minority leader Opiyo Wandayi. Go ahead with your job.
Naam, wacha nisikilize kaka mwingine hapa kidogo, nilikuwa nimemruka. Labda utueleze kwa ungependa iwapo rais sasa hivi ameshavunja wizara appointment ambayo labda huenda ikafanyika siku chache zinazokuja ifanyike kwa njia gani?
Haya, kwanza kwa majina naitwa Frederick, kwa jina ya mtani Adwera. Mimi ile rais amefanya leo ni ya kupendeza sana, na mimi niko nyuma yake kumzingira na kumfunika na damu ya Yesu, kwa vile ambavyo amekubali kusikiza maneno ya raia wa kawaida. Shida ya raia ilikuwa moja. Kwa nini cabinet ni mingi na wote wanaenda na pesa na raia wa kawaida anateseka, wengine wanalala njaa? Kenya imepata uhuru miaka 60. Bado mtu anaweza lala njaa Kenya. Tumepata uhuru miaka 60 ilizopita. Na bado raia wa kawaida anaweza lala njaa. Mwingine anaweza lala kwa mtaro, mwingine anaweza kwa kichaka. Ukitembea hapo usiku unapata watu wanalala tu kwa njia. Kwa sababu gani? Kukosa makao na kukosa vile ambavyo wanaweza kujimudu kimaisha. Hii cabinet aliweka mingi. Na hata avunje. Ikuwe hata 10, ikuwe hata 5. Akibadilisha panya na panya, akibadilisha paka na paka, bado itakuwa maisha ni ile ile. Na kama kweli amevunja cabinet na kuweka watu ambao ni waaminifu kufanyia raia kazi kwa njia ya ukweli na haki, tutakuwa tunampongeza huyo rais kwa kufanya kazi kama hiyo. Na tunaweza kumchagua hata 2027 kama atabadilisha. Vijana wengi wanamaliza shule hawendi kazi, hakuna kazi wanaweza pata. Unapata mtu anachoma mahindi na ako na degree. Kwa nini? Katika karne hii Kenya ambayo tumepata uhuru miaka 60 zilizopita, bado mtu amesoma amepata degree anachoma mahindi kwa njia.
Hiyo ndio kazi iko.
Hiyo ndio kazi iko. Anasema kazi ni kazi. Hiyo slogan yao ya UDA ilikuwa kazi ni kazi. Kazi ni kazi, hata kama uko na certificate upatiwe kazi ufanye. Unapatia rafiki yako kazi mwenye hawezi kufanya kazi. Hiyo ndio sababu tumepata hiyo shida.
Naam, asante sana kwa maoni yako. Nazungumza na wewe sasa hivi. Wacha kwanza nirudishe studioni. Naam, George Maringa kutoka hapa katika makao ama tume ya maadili na kukabili ufisadi. Kwa sasa narudisha kwako studioni, lakini naendelea kuzungumza pamoja na Wakenya watupe maoni zaidi. George?
Indeed, asante sana Paul Kirobi joining us from Nairobi CBD regarding reactions from Kenyans right there. And we've heard what they've had to say on the dismissal of the entire cabinet by President William Ruto. That is the developing story we continue to follow for you right here on TV 47. We now want to link up with Matthew Nyabena. He is a former LSK presidential aspirant as well as a former LSK head in Mombasa, the coastal region. Good evening, Council. I believe you're doing well. First of all, I'd like to pick your mind on your reaction first on what the President has done this afternoon.
My reaction is that what the President has done has been long overdue. The President is elected as the head of state and head of government. As head of state, he has a duty to ensure Kenya remains as one unit, and any threat to that statehood is dealt with. The divisions and the demonstrations that we've seen in the last few days were as a result of Kenyans feeling that the cabinet was not acting in the best interest of the country. Their speeches were not reflective of the nationhood of Kenya, and therefore it was necessary, being a vote of no confidence by the finance bill having been taken out, which was approved by the same cabinet. The very fact is that there were people who are not listening to the needs of Kenyans, and the President had to act to ensure that our nationhood and our statehood is maintained so that the country comes together.
Indeed. The President in his address, has quoted Article 152.1, that is the article that establishes the COP cabinet, which consists of the President, Deputy President, Attorney General, and not fewer than 14, not more than 22 cabinet secretaries, as well as Article 152.5b, which states that the President may dismiss a cabinet secretary. In light of what you've seen under the current constitution, when we last saw this was under President Mwai Kibaki on November 23rd, 2005. In the current scenario, whereas the President says, the government operations shall continue as normal, could you dissect the aftermath of the implementation of Article 152.5b?
The decision by the President is well within the law. He has the power to dismiss the cabinet secretaries. However, in proper corporate
by the Gen Z with the latest wave of protests. When you look at what the president has said, he will, look into a broad-based government. Those were his words. He's also entered a reflection point, and this is the outcome of the reflection point. When you look at the type of cabinet he should envision, rather he should have, what do you envision in terms of, say, the qualifications, the balance? Also, we've seen the Gen Z and the young people saying they want to be involved. What are some of the considerations that perhaps the head of state should take?
The first and foremost, I wish to say that when people come together, they come together because they want to avoid conflict and what is best and the common good of the Kenyans. The fact is, some of these demonstrations and issues have come in because cabinet secretaries have not acted in the best interests of this country. And when this was threatened, the Gen Z demonstrations were a result of the fear that we are moving down south. So it's the duty of the president first to appoint persons of integrity, persons who will adhere to the constitution. And forgive me for saying this, there were many jokers in this cabinet who could talk down to Kenyans. Kenya is for Kenyans first and foremost, and this is the truth. So we need a cabinet that will listen. We need a cabinet that has first and foremost a duty to ensure that whatever decisions they take, whatever utterances they make, will reflect the will of the man on the street. Who is the man on the street? The man on the street needs the economic improvement, needs to ensure that his security is protected. So we need technocrats, people who are well learned, people who understand issues that affect this country, and people who will be able to move the agenda of the Kenyans forward. It is necessary that in the new cabinet we have leaders who therefore will be bereft of politics. Let me clarify something.
Yes.
There are two facets when we deal with government. There is head of government and head of state. When you are head of government, you can do the politics. That is why you hear about the hustler government. But when you deal with issues of state is sustenance of the Kenyan to ensure that our past, our present, and our future is protected. And in this sense, the issue of the application of our resources, people who are not corrupt. Corruption has been a serious issue in this country. So we want and we expect people who have been mentioned in issues of corruption should step aside, not necessarily, and there has been this issue that maybe there is no evidence. It's not a matter of evidence. If Kenyans know you as a thief and everybody where you go, people say so and so is a thief, you should not be allowed to be in cabinet.
Yeah,
thank you.
Indeed. Wakili, the chapter 6 is one that was actually a bone of contention. We saw with the, the approval sessions in the National Assembly and, the committee that went ahead to vet this, the confirmation hearings, the vetting process that underwent. And, whereas that was happening with the committee, when it came to the floor of the House, Chapter 6 was really a bone of contention where people were saying some of those, in fact, a good number of the cabinet secretaries nominees back then who were later confirmed did not meet that chapter. Looking at it, what are some of the, if you could call it, non-negotiable considerations and qualities that the president should appear to look for or should look for in his future nominees?
Let me say first and foremost, there has been an argument that Chapter 6 is the forgotten baby of the Kenya Constitution 2010.
Yes.
If you look at one even court decisions, it has not been in the forefront of being implemented. And the very problems that we have can be argued as an attempt to try and find what is our integrity and what is our standard of leadership in this country. Do we need leaders who have been alleged or who have been confirmed to have committed offenses to be part of our governance structure? Kenyans have basically said no. So to me, we expect leaders who are beyond reproach. We are looking at Parliament. Parliament has set a very low standard in terms of integrity, in terms of our governance. We are looking also at the judiciary, some decisions that have come from the judiciary, including some which clothed people with university degrees when they did not qualify for those degrees, are things we need to look at. So it's an awakening moment. Kenyans can set their standard in terms of integrity, and the common good of Kenyans must be above the individual rights of somebody to either hold cabinet office. So I expect, and we expect, the president to up the bar in terms of integrity, so that we are able to have a cabinet which Kenyans will look at and say, this is our cabinet, this is a cabinet that we have all confidence in and which will govern in accordance with the Constitution and ensure that prosperity is ensured in this, our Republic of Kenya.
You know, we've also seen the austerity measures that the government has been speaking about over time, and there has been a precedent that has been set in terms of what you've been seeing. The cabinet secretaries, a good number of them, not walking the talk and not talking the walk, and that has been angering Kenyans, and some have even argued some do not even know what they are doing. Talk to us about, in terms of qualifications, does President William Ruto need to combine political balancing as well as technocrat balancing in the wake of the new alliance with former Prime Minister Raila Odinga? What are some of the issues that the cards at play that the president would be having to move on the some of the cards that he would have to move on the table?
The cards on the table, first and foremost, is having a cabinet of individuals who can perform their work. Having a cabinet that is reflective of the regions of this country. And the issue of politics is there. But sadly, and it could appear that in the cabinet that the president has dismissed was mainly constituted of politicians. What has been the effect of these politicians? They have brought us this far. Kenya was being torn apart. So the very effect is to look across the board. Of course, we cannot rule out a government of national unity, including the opposition, because in this situation, Kenya comes first. Political affiliations should not be able to dictate which kind of government is formed. And if the president looks across the board and finds somebody who is affiliated to the opposition, who can deliver and who can do good work, there's no reason at all for him not to be co-opted in government. Government and statehood is for the benefit of all Kenyans, and I believe that then the president should be able to ensure that our statehood, our nationhood is protected by having competent sons and daughters of this country who are patriotic and true to duty, and not subject to personal interests which override and which have affected the performance of government. We look forward to having a cabinet that serves Kenyans. And for President Ruto himself, he has said he's going to reflect. We hope that reflection delivers the very best for Kenya.
Matthew Nyabena, former LSK Chair, Mombasa branch. Please stay on the line for us. Just stay with us. We want to just pick some reactions from across the country. We'll come back to that conversation. And I want to take us to Kissy County, where, of course, as you would imagine, residents have, everyone has, an opinion about this. We want to speak to our reporter right there. Let's cross over to Kissy and listen in. Over to you.
Very much. As you can see that we are here at Kissy County, whereby we are having various residents from this area. Today afternoon we saw that the president was able to do various changes to his cabinet, and with me I have various Kenyans who give us their sentiments. What is their feel after the president's speech today? If you just come here and tell us your sentiments.
I'm Wilson Amenda, youth leader Kisumu County. Tuko hapa Kissy watch game. Kulingana na venye president leo ameamua, sisi kama wakaji wa Kisumu County ama Nyanza region, we are very happy because kuanzia Ruto aanze hii mula wake kama rais wa Kenya, kusema ukweli, Ruto alichagua marafiki zake. Ruto alichagua wenye walimsaidia kukampeni. Ruto alichagua wenye walitoa pesa kumsaidia akuwe nini, akuwe president. Hao wote walikuwa incompetent. Hakuna mwenye alikuwa anajua kazi yenye anafanya. For example, hakuna mwenye unaweza chukua Babu na Mwamba unaweka minister wa sport na hakuna Kenya amejua kwa sport. Susan Nakumicha unamweka kwa health and she doesn't know anything in health. The other minister Linturi umemweka kwa agriculture and she doesn't know anything kwa agriculture. Hata wangetolewa wote mpaka Gachagua mpaka Mudavadi wote. Na tunaomba President Ruto, venye umeamua hivyo, usirudi hapa na handshake, usirudi hapa na watu wa Raila. Tunataka tu ikuwe kitu fair. Kama ni waziri wa fedha, ikuwe mwenye amesomea hiyo kitu. Kama ni agriculture, ikuwe mwenye amesomea hiyo kitu. Si ati unaweka juu sasa umewekwa na pressure na mtu mwingine. Sisi tuna support Gen Z na tunawaambia waendelee na hiyo Kenya wanafanya. We want change in Kenya.
Hivyo vile mwenzangu ameongea kwamba nami pia nasema ya kwamba hata vile amesema kwa hakika ni vizuri, kwa sababu akitoa watu wote, sisi kama Gen Z tulikuwa tunataka watu wote waende nyumbani, kwa sababu hata vile alichagua hao, hata parastatal ukiangalia unapata watu wote, ukisoma hao majina yao kubali.
Haya, mimi kama Gen Z najua tuliambia rais kuwa dissolve not reshuffle. Kuna baadhi ya wale mawaziri ambao hawajafanya kazi, na sisi kama Gen Z tutaambia rais ni watu wagani ambao anarudisha. Mtu kama Eliud Owalo amefanya kazi yake vizuri, wale ambao tunaona wamefanya kazi ndio tutakuwa tunarudisha. Kwa hivyo tulimwambia dissolve not reshuffle. Hapo sasa kile kimesalia ni kuweza kuvunja hadi ile ya prime cabinet ambaye ni Musalia Mudavadi.
Thank you very much. Those are the various sentiments that the Kenyans have given according to the president's speech today afternoon. I don't have much to say, but to pass the mantle back to you in studio at this moment. My name is Kombo Alfayo.
Kombo Alfayo, thank you so much for joining us right there, joining us live from Kissy County on reactions, especially from residents on what has happened. I'm still with Matthew Nyabena, former LSK president, Mombasa branch. Matthew, thank you so much for staying with us. Earlier on, before we even proceeded to listen to the remarks from Kissy, you said the first threshold is that he needs to have a cabinet. And then when we look at the the controversies that have flowed or even featured in these ministries over the years. We've seen cabinet secretaries, even from the previous administration of the former president, the fourth president. Most of these cabinet secretaries would say, I am not the accounting officer, ask the principal secretary. We did speak to an analyst earlier on who said that the president has just scratched the surface, if you call it. But then there is more that goes to, than meets the eye in terms of just, dissolving an entire cabinet. Talk to us about, the issues that surround, corruption, graft, especially in terms of mismanagement of funds in these ministries, and who is the ultimate, culpable person.
It's interesting that cabinet secretaries can say they are not accounting officers when we are dealing with graft. But when their ministries perform very well, of course they want to take credit. But when issues as to performance come in, they want to appoint to permanent secretaries. They are responsible for the running of those offices. They have political and actual responsibility when issues of corruption occur in the ministry. If you have put cabinet secretaries, let me equate them to watchmen. If your goods are being stolen and you have a watchman taking care of your office or your home, can the watchman say that it's somebody else or somebody came from the other side? We have to shake, and they have to take political responsibility for their ministries. The idea of trying to hide behind that it's cabinet secretaries who do day-to-day running, then maybe it's a concession, then we may not need them. If you really can't take responsibility, possibly we don't need you. That is my answer.
Yeah, indeed. Now, even at the the functionalities of these cabinet cabinet secretaries, we've seen the introduction of the MSMEs, ministry in this administration of President William Ruto. In your opinion, should he retain them as they are, or should he merge, come up with more, or should he reduce?
Given that we have a problem with the issue of our finances, Kenyans expect the president to have a trim cabinet to reflect that, once you reduce the number of ministries, of course there is a saving that will make. I expect him to merge some of these functions of the ministries and give us a trim cabinet that is able to deliver.
And perhaps, what would be your perspective in terms of moving forward, even as we enter into the home stretch of this conversation, some of the legalities and some of the issues that those who would be nominated should be able to adhere to moving forward?
My view is that first and foremost, the mere fact of a cabinet secretary being fired should not be the very end. We have constitutional organs, including the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, which should be able to move in, investigate, and where evidence is found, these cabinet secretaries be found culpable and be taken to court and face the full force of the law. Of course, as I said earlier, this is a moment that we should be able to seize. It's a moment for us to redefine and identify what is the ethics and what are the standards for this country. So as the president does this, Kenyans should be able to now really agree what is tolerable in Kenya, including our elective politics. Interestingly, you've seen most of the people who are mentioned in graft go back home and get elected. So the Kenyan voter is also on trial. It's on trial for giving their mandate to people who have been mentioned in instances of grand corruption. And issues of lack of integrity, issues of corruption, and issue of lack of ethics should not be tolerated and should not be a way of life. If they are tolerated, we are killing the future of our children. And Generation Z have basically come and said, no, stop, we should not be able to kill our future. Because we owe it to ourselves and we owe it to the future generation to ensure that we set a standard of integrity, a standard of functionality, below which we cannot sink.
Absolutely, indeed. Thank you so much. That has been Matthew Nyabena. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Matthew Nyabena. Indeed, Matthew Nyabena, he's the former LSK chair, Mombasa branch, speaking to us on the what we've seen happening, especially this afternoon, the dissolution of Kenya's cabinet by President William Ruto. Let's now cross over to Bungoma County, the western part of the country, to be able to speak to residents and pick their opinions regarding what has just happened. And we want to cross over to our reporter. Over to you.
Mimi nilionelea rais angefuta mawaziri. Angeangalia wale mawaziri wa kora ndio wala angefuta kazi. Na wale watu wa kora kama usikasuti amewaacha. Kwa nini anafuta mawaziri kazi? Yeye asiokope kazi, yeye afanye tu kazi. Asikuwe na uoga. Hiyo kumaanisha ameokopa. Na asiokope jenzi. Tuko na yeye mguu kwa peka, tuko na yeye tu. Hatutaacha yeye. Sasa yeye alisema mambo ya jana di wa Kenya tufanye kazi. Tutafanyaje kama unakuwa unatulalisha? Wewe tulalisha tufanye na wewe kazi. Tukisema tunafanya kazi na yeye akubali ile masharti tulimpea 14 ayakubali na atusikize. Sisi ndio tulipea yeye kura. Si mtu mwingine. Akumbuke sisi wadosi wao. Hao wenye wako juu wote. Sisi tunapikianga kura. Maisha yanasukuma tufanye maandamano. Sisi kuna mtu yote anaweza ingia ndani yetu atufandi hapana. Ni maisha. Maisha yanafanya tufanye maandamano. Sasa hiyo peke yake asiovie. Yeye afanye kazi bila atuwaiti. Akumbuke ili alituwaiti huko nyuma akiwa kwa campaign na atufanyie. Hatuna maneno na yeye. Tunangoja na wapi kwa Tepe 2027. Yangu ni
Rais alichukua njia mbaya au hana mtu wa kumwambia asikie. Hiyo alichukua njia mbaya ndio akafuta mawaziri wote. hawafutangi wote. Kama watoto wamesaliwa kwa nyumba watoto 10 na mmoja akose, unaweza futa wote kweli? Na mmoja ndiye amekosa. Sasa hiyo rais alifanya kitendo mbaya. Angeenda na wafisati wenye wako serikalini kama wabunge, mabwanyenye wenye wako hata kwa serikali wameandikwa bila nini yoyote. Hawana certificate lakini wameandikwa wanakula tu pesa free. Si angetembea kwa makaunti acheki hao watu wanapata pesa namna gani, waliwaandikwa na nani? Lakini hawa mawaziri sijaona kama wamekosea, ni wachache wamekosea lakini wameharibia wengine.
Sasa unaona, unaweza chukua mawaziri wengine lakini wawe tu na hiyo tabia ya wale wengine. Sasa kuchukua hao wengine si suluhisho, lakini ungechungulia katikati ya hao uone nani mwenye anafaili kwa kazi. Wewe ndio umefuta tu polepole, unafuta mmoja mmoja ukireplace polepole na akili yako. Na hao mawaziri wenye walikuwa wanafanya kwa serikali hao. Sasa wewe unachunguza polepole kama president, unachunguza polepole, sio kufuta wote. Sawa. Kwa sababu nyumba ya nyasi yote haiwezi chomewa kwa ajili ya nyasi moja. Sasa wewe unaangalia mtu mmoja tu.
Indeed, those are residents from Bungoma County sharing their opinion, especially what we've seen right there with the presidential address by President William Ruto. And I want to give you some feedback I'm seeing on X, formerly Twitter, from the Honorable Aiden Duale, now former CS for Defense. On X, he's just posted, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to His Excellency President William Ruto for entrusting me with the role of Cabinet Secretary for Defense in the first Kenya Kwanza administration. I am deeply honored and will forever be indebted to him and the people of Kenya for this opportunity to serve our great nation. As the Quran says, he quotes, "But they plan and Allah plans, and Allah is the best of planners." End of quote, Quran 8:30. I extend, again, just to read you what Aiden Duale has posted on his X, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to His Excellency President William Ruto for entrusting me with the role of Cabinet Secretary for Defense in the Kenya Kwanza administration. I am deeply honored and will forever be indebted to him and the people of Kenya for this opportunity to serve our great nation. As the Quran says, quote, "But they plan and Allah plans, and Allah is the best of planners." Quran 8:30, end of quote. Now, the cabinet secretaries, rather the cabinet that has been dissolved consisted of 22 cabinet secretaries. The only one who has survived is Musalia Mudavadi in the latest cabinet dissolution by President William Ruto that has just occurred. And of course, right here on TV47, we continue to monitor and we'll continue getting your feedback on the latest events and latest occurrences. And we are now honored to be able to speak to the Honorable Martha Karua, who is also the party leader for NAK Kenya Party, who joins us by way of phone. She was also former Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs and also former Minister for Water. Good afternoon, Mheshimiwa Martha Karua. Thank you so much for joining us on TV47. Your initial reactions, especially regarding the actions of the President this afternoon, the dissolution of the cabinet.
Okay, I say that is a little too late, too little too late. Mm-hmm. And mainly I'm saying that because Dr. Ruto has done nothing to get the killer cops arrested. And I know there is an IG and a National Police Service, but remembering that he has congratulated them or affirmed them in no more than 3 occasions, himself alone, his cabinet, and again, telling them they have done a good job when we know that they shot and killed unarmed, peaceful protesters, mainly young people, when we know there's been abductions leading to murder or injury, and those abductions are continuing. I would say it's too little, too late. We should ensure that the rule of law obtains and people are not arrested, murdered, or injured, like hundreds who were injured. And he should also accede to the demands of the Gen Z, which do not need dialogue. Firing cabinet is a good move, but it's coming a little too late. It must be coupled by serious appointments of qualified people capable of advising him, not appointing a cabinet that consists of some people who are unable to deliver and then hiring hundreds of advisors. So the jury is out and we are watching to see the next move he makes. Firing is the easier part.
Firing is the easier part. Mheshimiwa, you served in the cabinet in several capacities, Minister for Water, Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs. And the operations of cabinet are one that, are considered that these are the top initial advices of the president. Do you think that Chapter 6 has been obeyed or adhered to, especially under this current constitution, in having cabinet secretaries who serve also as advisors to the president?
No, I don't think so, because the way the Constitution makes allows only 22 cabinet positions. Then when you add the president and his deputy, that's 24. Hiring so many advisors is circumventing the Constitution to end up with a very large government when the constitutional design is for a lean, mean government. To add insult to injury, they've gone ahead and hired CASs. So making a government of almost 200, while the Constitution is clear that only 24 persons. And then hiring so many principal secretaries, almost 3 per ministry, making the largest government ever in Kenyan history.
So then, earlier on we did speak to an analyst who said, this is just scratching of the surface, as it were, and, there are still, issues of corruption because there are still more government officials in it. What more would the president need to do to perhaps inspire confidence?
Well, one, I've said, adhere to the rule of law, stop all the abductions, stop brutalization of people exercising their rights, withdraw all the prosecutions of the peaceful demonstrators, get arrested all those goons who looted and who are captured on CCTV, unless if they have erased or interfered. We saw on the media goons looting for a considerable amount of time, literally covered by the police, So this, to show good faith, those are the things. Apologize for the dead and injured, compensate. Those are some of the things he can begin to do to show good faith.
On X, you said, that, leaders should be careful not to overdo or override what has been advocated for by the Gen Z. Should dialogue go ahead, or what would be your opinion on that? Because we also didn't see you at
the dialogue is a trap. Remember, Dr. Ruto, last year, after killing and maiming the demonstrators of Azimio, he called for dialogue, which ended up being fraudulent. The number one issue was cost of living, which after almost 9 months, because the report came out in December, he did not tackle the cost of living issue. The only thing they tackled was IEBC, yet people didn't go to the streets because there was no IEBC. The IEBC situation is its own creation out of violation of the Constitution, because he irregularly hounded 4 commissioners out of office whose only offense was dissenting with the other 3. But he deliberately cherry-picked. He only wants the 3 who validated his presidency and who, as per the ruling of the Supreme Court, the 3 ended up being the majority because the 4 were not regarded by the court. The effect is that the court made an absurd ruling that 3 were the majority, following which Dr. Ruto hounded the 4 out of office irregularly. So we cannot say as the public that we got anything from the NADCO talks. We have it as a reference because Dr. Ruto and his regime telling people to go to dialogue, they will again shortchange the people. And therefore it is a trap. And what is there to dialogue anyway? As the Gen Z are saying, let him act on their demands, which are simple. They are actually demands, from where I see it, I'm seeing demands for transparency, accountability, and adherence to the rule of law. Making the state to work for the people, not for Ruto and a few of his cronies.
Mheshimiwa, finally, what kind of cabinet would you like to see in the remainder of the term of President William Ruto?
Firstly, I have my doubts that even if they change of cabinet, he'll constitute. I'm skeptical whether he's capable of constituting a serious and qualified cabinet because he likes people he can drive. And we have seen that. When he appoints the incompetent, he ends up being the minister for everything and drives everything. So this is his mess. But in any country, and as a Kenyan, I would like to see a highly professional and qualified cabinet, and one that has integrity, and one that puts the needs of the people first, adheres to the Constitution and to the rule of law.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Mheshimiwa Martha Karua, for speaking to us.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye. Indeed, that has been Honorable Martha Karua, party leader, NARC Kenya, as well as former MP for Gishugu, former Justice and Constitutional Affairs Minister, and also former Minister for Water, speaking to us right here on TV 47 on the backdrop of the developing story. We continue to follow for you that President William Ruto has dissolved his entire cabinet. And just to read you the names, even as we have the graphics to show you who has left, as you know, in the cabinet, because remember, these have been 22 cabinet secretaries that have been dissolved, sent home. Kithure Kindiki, who has been the Interior and National Administration Cabinet Secretary, Professor Njuguna Ndungu, National Treasury and Planning, Aisha Jumwa, Gender, Culture, the Arts and Heritage, Aiden Duale, CS Defense, Alice Wahome, Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development, Dr. Alfred Mutua, Tourism and Wildlife, Moses Kuria, Public Service Performance and Delivery Management, Rebecca Miano, Investments, Trade and Industry, Onesmus Kipchumba Murkomen, Roads and Transport, Rosalinda Soipan Tuya, Environment and Forestry, Zakaria Mwangi Njeru, Water, Sanitation and Irrigation, Penina Malonza, East African Community, the ESOLs and Regional Development, as well as Mithika Linturi, Agriculture and Livestock Development, Ezekiel Machogu, Education, Davis Chirichir, Energy and Petroleum, Ababu Namwamba, Youth Affairs and Sports, Simon Chelugui, Cooperatives and Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, MSME Development, Salim Mvuria, Mining, Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs, Florence Bore, Labor and Social Protection, Eliud Owalo, Information, Communications and the Digital Economy, Susan Nahumincha Wafula, CS Health, as well as Mercy Keiru Wanjao, Secretary to the Cabinet, and Justin Bidan Njoka Muturi, Attorney General. That is the Cabinet that has been dissolved, save for that office of the Deputy President, of course, and now Musalia Mudavadi, who is Prime Cabinet Secretary and CS Foreign and Diaspora Affairs. I am George Maringa, thanking you so much for your splendid company over the last couple of hours as we continued to monitor the breaking news and developing story on the dissolution of the cabinet by President William Ruto. And I'll leave you with more details, graphics, as well as information regarding this breaking news as we continue to follow this for you and having more details for you in our subsequent bulletins. I'm George Maringa. Stay safe and be kind to one another. Bye.